Joseph's incredible journey, faith, overcoming in miracles. Picture this: you are the beloved son, surrounded by an adoring father, but also the target of the deadly envy of your own brothers. Your life seems perfect until the moment when everything falls apart. You are betrayed, sold into slavery, and thrown into a dark pit. Sounds like the end, right? But this is not just a story of tragedy, it is a story of faith, resilience, and miracles. Today, we will explore the incredible journey of Joseph, son of Jacob, a man who faced the greatest of adversities and still changed the destiny of a nation. Joseph was more than a biblical character, he was a living example of how God can transform our greatest pains into extraordinary victories. This story will chill you, inspire you, and perhaps even make you reflect on your own life. So, get ready to embark on this epic journey. It all begins with a young man named Joseph. He was Jacob's 11th son, but there was something special about him. He was the first son of Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife. From an early age, Joseph received a gift that would mark his life, a colorful cloak, given by his own father as a symbol of preference. But this gesture of love awakened something dark in the hearts of Joseph's brothers: envy. They could no longer bear to see their father treating Joseph differently. But what really added fuel to the fire was something else: Joseph's dreams. Joseph began to have strange dreams. In one, he saw his own heads of grain bowing down to his. In another, the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed down to him. When he told them these dreams, his brothers were furious. "Will you really rule over us?" they mocked. But Jacob wisely kept these words to heart, knowing that something greater was coming. The brothers' hatred reached the point where they planned to kill Joseph. But Reuben, the eldest brother, suggested throwing him into a dry well to avoid bloodshed. While Joseph cried out for help at the bottom of the well, his brothers sat down to eat, indifferent to his suffering. And then came the final blow. They sold their own brother for 20 pieces of silver. Yes, you heard right. 20 pieces of silver. To cover up their crime, they dipped Joseph's colorful robe in the blood of an animal and took it to his father, pretending that he had been devoured by a wild beast. Jacob wept bitterly, believing that his beloved son was dead. But here's the big twist: God had other plans for Joseph. He was taken to Egypt, where he was sold as a slave to Potiphar, an important official of Pharaoh. Despite the tragedy, Joseph did not lose his faith. He worked hard, demonstrated integrity, and soon earned the trust of his master, who made him overseer of the entire household. Now imagine this: Joseph, a young slave, running one of the most important households in Egypt. He was diligent, wise, and just, and his presence brought prosperity to Potiphar's household. Everyone could see that he was blessed by God. But Joseph's ordeal was far from over. Potiphar's wife, enchanted by Joseph's beauty and virtue, tried repeatedly to seduce him. She saw something special in him, but Joseph, faithful to God and his master, refused to give in. One day when she persisted, Joseph ran away, leaving his cloak in her hands. Furious, she falsely accused Joseph of sexual harassment. Potiphar, believing her lie, had Joseph thrown in prison. Even in the darkness of prison, Joseph continued to trust in God. He interpreted dreams for other prisoners, accurately predicting the future. His gift caught the attention of everyone, including 2 of Pharaoh's servants, the cupbearer and the baker. Joseph interpreted their dreams. He predicted that the cupbearer would be restored to his post, while the baker would be executed. It all happened just as he said. Joseph asked the cupbearer to remember him to Pharaoh, but Pharaoh forgot about Joseph for 2 years. 2 long years of waiting. 2 years when Joseph could have given up hope. But he remained faithful, keeping his faith unwavering. He knew God was in control, even when all seemed lost. Then came the decisive moment. Pharaoh himself had disturbing dreams that no one could interpret. 7 fat cows being devoured by 7 thin cows. 7 healthy heads of wheat being eaten by 7 thin heads. The wise men of Egypt were perplexed. Do you remember the cupbearer Joseph helped in prison? He finally remembered Joseph and recommended him to Pharaoh. Joseph was taken out of prison and brought before Pharaoh, dressed in clean, dignified clothes. Joseph revealed that the dreams were a message from God. 7 years of plenty would be followed by 7 years of devastating famine. He suggested that Egypt store grain during the years of plenty. Impressed, Pharaoh appointed Joseph governor of Egypt, putting him in charge of the entire plan. From slave to governor, Joseph saved Egypt and many other regions from famine. He led wisely, implementing a storage system that would ensure food for millions of people. But the best was yet to come. When famine struck Canaan, Joseph's brothers went to Egypt to seek help. They met Joseph, but did not recognize him. He was now dressed in fine clothes and spoke fluent Egyptian. Joseph decided to test them before revealing his identity. He accused them of being spies and demanded that they bring Benjamin, his younger brother. When they returned with Benjamin, Joseph treated them kindly, but secretly placed his silver cup in Benjamin's bag to see how they would react. When the brothers were accused of stealing, Judah offered to take Benjamin's place. He said, "My father loves this boy very much. Please let me take his place." This gesture showed that they had changed. They were now different men, capable of sacrifice and love. Moved, Joseph could no longer contain his emotions. He ordered everyone out of the room except his brothers. Then he revealed his identity, saying, "I am Joseph, your brother, the one you sold into Egypt." "Do not be afraid," he continued, "for it was God who sent me here to preserve lives. You intended evil against me, but God intended it for good. Now bring my father and the whole family here, for there is enough food for everyone." The brothers were astonished and afraid, but Joseph forgave them completely. He embraced them, wept with them, and invited them to live in Egypt with their father. Jacob, upon learning that Joseph was alive, left for Egypt with his entire family. They were reunited in joy and peace. Joseph's story is much more than a tale of personal overcoming. It is a powerful testimony of divine providence. He faced betrayal, slavery, false accusations, and imprisonment, but he never lost his faith in God. He understood that even in the darkest situations, God was in control, weaving a greater purpose through every hardship. Joseph didn't know what the future held, but he trusted that God had a plan. This story teaches us that God's plans may be different from ours, but they are always better. Injustice may seem unbearable, but God can turn it into a blessing. Pain may seem endless, but it can be the path to glorious victory. You may be going through difficult times, but remember, God can turn your pain into a blessing. Just like Joseph, you can be used by God to fulfill extraordinary purposes. May Joseph's story inspire you to trust God, even when the world seems to be falling apart around you. Remember that, like Joseph, you can be used by God to accomplish extraordinary purposes, as long as you keep your faith unshakable and your heart open to forgiveness and hope. For as Joseph declared, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Those words echo to this day, reminding us that God can use even our greatest tragedies to accomplish His plans. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring content like this. Leave a comment with your thoughts on this story. How did it touch your heart? What lessons did you learn from Joseph? And if you want to hear more stories like this, click the bell to receive notifications whenever we post new videos. Until next time.